Hi folks, I'm Lin Rhea here at the Blacksmith Shop of the Historic Arkansas Museum, and we're going to make a knife. So what I'm doing now is putting a point on the bar, and then I'm about to push the cutting edge up into the bar to allow for the bevels. So the point is down and the cutting edge is raised up. So all I've done now is reduce the thickness from that to a little bit thinner and drew it out longer. So I'm going to do one more profile. I'm going to pull the point down and then pull down the cutting edge. So I'm doing a preliminary straightening. I want to get the sides parallel and flat, and it's all based upon how well I can see it straight. If I can see a straight line somewhere, then I can follow that. So I'm just barely hitting that little area there at the back of the blade. I'm just hitting it very lightly. At its hottest point, I'm bringing that cutting edge down to the center and flush. Then I'm going to work all this down. But while it's extremely hot, I'm going to hit it very light because I'm in a tight spot right there. I can see each hammer blow as it happens, and then whenever I see the need to adjust, I can adjust it. So you can see it taking place as each hammer blow happens. You can just see the blade edge come right on out. By stretching this length, this stays the same, but if you lengthen that, you can't help but just raise up. So it starts creeping up like a banana, and so we'll bring it back down. And each time you do that, the result will be a longer blade. So you can see it starting to look like a blade. It's fairly straight. There will be a refining. And now it's time to cut it off and pull this part back. I'm making sure that each hammer blow is effective. And now we're on a different part of the knife. We're in the back. Drawing it out. Just going to get longer and longer to come out another 2 inches at least. Couple more heats. Now I'm going to do overall straightening. I'm easing off on the air just a little so it can soak in get the right heat. Now I'm just looking at it to make sure that it's rather straight. It has to be able to grind properly. I'm going to go to the vise and twist it. So what we have is we have the back of the blade, the cutting edge, the plunge right here, and what's called a ricasso, and then this will be a notch and a notch where the guard fits on, and then the handle will be back here. There's going to be at least one pin through and through the handle and through that tang. That makes it all very secure. Hardening is just part of the heat treat. So we're going to harden it. It'll be too hard. So the only way to get this blade in a usable form, we have to go past the point where it's too hard, and then we temper it back. We're going to get it up to a particular color. It's called critical temperature, and that's what people commonly call cherry red. There's so many ways of doing it, but in this primitive forge, we're going to just drag the cutting edge, kind of saw it in this motion through that hot coat and get the blade hot. And when we full quench into the oil, the only part that was at that cherry red or critical temperature, that's the only part that's going to harden. Now this has a little bit of a silvery sheen and the scale popped off, that black scale popped off showing some silver. So that's an indication that it hardened. So I'm cooling the tang off so it won't be hot and burn my fingers. I got to hold it with my fingers to test it for hardness. And the test that we perform now to make sure that that hardened is take a file and try to cut it. It won't cut. The next thing we do is temper it. If I just left it alone for a few days probably, or even hours, it would probably crack. So we'll put it in the oven for a couple of hours at about 400 degrees, and that'll stabilize it and it'll take all the stresses that are in it now. But if in the old days, what they would do is take a bar and heat it and set it on that hot bar and watch the colors run up into the blade. And that's kind of what I'm going to do now. I'm going to take a pipe and lay that pipe on the fire, and that's going to create a little oven. So this will take some time. I'll have to kind of babysit it. I'm going to push that up in there. We're creating an atmosphere that's a little more even than just holding it over the fire. We've got a chamber now that will take some of the stresses out of this blade, and it'll buy me some time until I can get to my oven. We could totally draw it back and temper it in the old way, of course, but I want to make sure that we have a very controlled situation. So we're making a honey knife, and we've shown you a little bit about the process, but I will go over that process again real quick. So, of course, we forged the blade, and you saw how we pulled the tang down and the bevel down, and we actually ground and heat treated the blade. So you saw that. So I'm going to put this down. I'm going to show you some of the parts of the knife. As you know, a knife has to have a handle. So we have some material here that illustrates how you have two pieces of handle that go together around that part of the knife, and it fits in there sort of like that, inside that. And we also have the knife guard that goes on in a similar way right here. So that's just some of the parts of the knife that goes into it. A lot of work, a lot of planning, drilling, sanding, etc. Now we're going to look at a finished knife. This is exactly the same top knife of that blade that we were just looking at. When it's cleaned up, the scale is gone. Now this has been heat treated, of course, and installed into the guard and into two scales and pins. And this is a typical knife that you might see here in Central Arkansas. So we want to thank you for joining us here in the Historic Arkansas Museum Blacksmith Shop. I'm Lin Rhea, and we're inviting you to come see us here at the museum. So until next time, thank you.